Hello students, my name is Mrs. Caroline Shaji and I am here to tell you about and teach you a story. The name of the story is the first lesson of class 9's BEEHIVE book. Do you recall the name of the story, students? The name of the story is The Fun They Had. And I must tell you, this story is a piece of science fiction. It is all about science, but something of the future. So something which might not have taken place. And the person who wrote it, Isaac Asimov. Isaac Asimov is the author of this story called The Fun They Had. And when he wrote this story, dear students, you must know he did not know anything about computers and neither did he have any idea about the kind of technology that we have today. So, let's begin with a small gist of the story. Two children, Maggie and Tommy. Maggie aged 11 and Tommy aged 13 years. These children were neighbors. And dear students, they had a different kind of education because their education is not placed in the time that we have today. Their education is placed in the future. When we start the story itself, we hear that Maggie wrote in her diary, "Today Tommy found a real book." And you know the date that she recorded, 17th May 2157. Has 2157 arrived yet? You would say, no, not yet. And that's true. And so we are talking about a future school. Now this girl Maggie and her neighbor Tommy, they saw for the first time a real book. And how do you think a real book would look? The pages of the real book were old and they were crinkly. And when you turn the pages and you turn them back, the words on the pages appeared exactly the same. What were they talking about? They were talking about the kind of books that we have. And this book was found by Tommy in his attic. And whom do you think it belonged to? In the story, Tommy tells us that his book belonged to his grandfather's grandfather. And therefore, we would call it Tommy's great-grandfather. Now, in the story, we also hear that they have got a television screen as a book. And their books were known as telebooks. And also, we hear that this girl Maggie hated school. She hated school because the mechanical teacher, it means her television screen, was giving her exam after exam. And she was continuously performing badly. And then her mother was disappointed and her mother sent for the county inspector. Now the county inspector came home and he had a box full of dials and wires. And what do you think he did? This county inspector took the mechanical teacher aside and he began to work on the mechanical teacher. Just imagine a school where the mechanical teacher, the teacher has to be repaired, not the student. You would say in our times, if the student is performing badly, the student would be responsible for the bad performance. The student would be sometimes scolded by the teachers as well as by the parents. But here, the mechanical teacher is taken aside and the level is reduced. So, now the level of the teacher was reduced to an average 10 and Maggie started doing better in her geography. Similarly, once Tommy's teacher was taken away for a whole month. Why? Because the history section had blanked out. So these children are not having the kind of school that we know. These children are having a different kind of school. Actually, they do not even go to school. Maggie's school was right beside her bedroom. So let's read all about Tommy and Maggie in the story, The Fun They Had. The Fun They Had, written by Isaac Asimov. Maggie even wrote about it that night in her diary. On the page headed 17th May 2157, she wrote, "Today Tommy found a real book. It was a very old book. Maggie's grandfather once said that when he was a little boy, his grandfather told him that there was a time when all stories were printed on paper. They turned the pages, which were yellow and crinkly. It means they were almost about to tear. And it was awfully funny." What do you think is the meaning of awfully, students? It means it was really funny. It was awfully funny to read words that stood still instead of moving the way they were supposed to on a screen. So that's how the words move on their telebooks. The words move on the screen. But in our books, like I can show you my book, in our books the words don't move. That's it. So, you know, and then when they turned back to the page before, it had the same words on it that it had had when they read it the first time. So the words never changed. The words remained absolutely the same. "Gee," said Tommy, "what a waste. When you're through with a book, you just throw it away. I guess our television screen must have had 1,000,000 books on it, and it's good for plenty more. I wouldn't throw it away." "Same with mine," said Maggie. She was 11 and hadn't seen as many telebooks as Tommy had. He was 13, like I told you earlier. So, they are talking about not throwing away their telebooks just as we would throw away the books that we have finished reading. She said, "Where did you find it?" "In my house," he pointed without looking, because he was busy reading in the attic. So he found the book in the attic. What is an attic? An attic is a storeroom on the roof of the house. So that's where he found it. "What's it about?" "School." Maggie was scornful. "School? What's there to write about school? I hate school." Maggie always hated school, but now she hated it more than ever. Now I want you to take a pencil and just mark this paragraph, paragraph number 3. The reason why Maggie hated school. So why did she hate school? The mechanical teacher had been giving her test after test in geography, and she had been doing worse and worse until her mother had shaken her head sorrowfully and sent for the county inspector. So please mark that. The county inspector came to Maggie's rescue, came to help Maggie. He was a round little man with a red face and a whole box of tools with wires and dials. He smiled at Maggie and gave her an apple, then took the teacher apart. Now, a person coming to her home to repair the mechanical teacher, giving her an apple. What do you think that suggests? Does it suggest that he was encouraging her or discouraging her? Yes, he was encouraging her. So he wanted her to feel that the mistake is not yours. You are performing badly because the mechanical teacher may be geared too high. And now what is he going to do? Like I told you earlier, he's going to reduce the level. So Maggie had hoped he wouldn't know how to put it together again. But he knew how, all right. And after an hour or so, There it was again, large and black and ugly, with a big screen on which all the lessons were shown and the questions were asked. That wasn't so bad. The part Maggie hated most was the slot where she had to put homework and test papers. Now, you may be asked a question, which part of school did Maggie hate the most? And here you have the answer on page 6 of your book. It says the part Maggie hated most was the slot where she had to put the homework and the test papers. And she always had to write them in a punch code they made her learn when she was 6 years old. So she had a special code language to submit her homework. And the mechanical teacher calculated the marks in no time. Now, if you have a teacher like me to do the correction of your notebook or maybe your test paper, it would take me perhaps a day or more to sit and correct each word and each sentence. But here the mechanical teacher would just calculate the marks within seconds. The inspector had smiled after he was finished and patted Maggie's head. He said to her mother, "It's not the little girl's fault, Mrs. Jones. I think the geography sector was geared a little too quick. Those things happen sometimes. I've slowed it up to an average 10-year level." So, what happened with the mechanical teacher? The mechanical teacher was geared too high. And now, the county inspector has lowered the level to an average level of 10 years. Actually, the overall pattern of her progress is quite satisfactory. And he patted Maggie's head again. So, he is quite satisfied with Maggie's performance. Maggie was disappointed though. She had been hoping they would take the teacher away altogether. They had once done the same thing to Tommy's teacher when they had taken away his teacher for nearly a month. And like I told you earlier, I've already said this to you, Tommy's teacher had blanked out in the history part. This history section had blanked out completely. But Maggie's teacher was repaired too soon. So she said to Tommy, "Why would anyone write about school?" Tommy looked at her with very superior eyes. You must remember Tommy is elder to her, so he's showing off his knowledge. What do you think is the meaning of superior? He's showing that he knows more than Maggie. Because it's not our kind of school, stupid. So when Maggie called Tommy stupid, how do you think Maggie might have felt? She was hurt. This is the old kind of school that they had hundreds and hundreds of years ago. He added loftily. That means again in a very superior manner. He's trying to show that he knows more than Maggie. Pronouncing the words carefully. Centuries ago. Maggie was hurt. Well, I don't know what kind of school they had all that time ago. She read the book over his shoulder for a while. Then she said, "Anyway, they had a teacher." But Tommy will remind her. Their teacher and Maggie's teacher are not the same. Sure, they had a teacher, but it was a regular teacher. It was a man. Now, please mark that. This is on page number 8, children. On page number 8, and it's paragraph number 6. So, Tommy is reminding her about a regular teacher. They had a regular teacher. It means a man. Sure, they had a teacher, but it wasn't a regular teacher. It was a man. So, what do we understand by the word regular teacher? Regular teacher means the mechanical teacher. And Tommy says they did not have a mechanical teacher. They did not have a regular teacher like Tommy and Maggie. They had a man. And now Maggie says, "A man? How could a man be a teacher?" Well, he just told the boys and girls things and gave them homework and asked them questions. So Tommy is giving her the reply. Tommy says that man just gave them some homework. He told them things and he asked them questions. A man isn't smart enough. That's what is the comment made by Maggie. Sure he is. My father knows as much as my teacher. He knows almost as much, I betcha. What do you think will be the meaning of betcha? It means I bet you. So Tommy and Maggie are having an argument. And Maggie feels that a regular teacher and a man cannot be the same. A man will not know so much. Maggie wasn't prepared to dispute that. She said, I wouldn't want a strange man in my house to teach me. Now, dispute. What's the meaning of dispute? Argue about, fight about. So Maggie did not want to dispute. And she says, I wouldn't want a strange man in my house. And Tommy screamed with laughter. Tommy began to laugh. You don't know much, Maggie. There are many times in the story where Tommy tries to show Maggie that he is superior. He is greater than her. Why? Because he is elder to her. So therefore he knows more. So he laughs at Maggie. And he says, the teachers didn't live in the house. They had a special building. And all the kids went there. Just like our kind of schools. The teachers are in a building called school and the children come to study from the teachers. And all the kids learn the same thing? Sure, if they were the same age. But my mother says a teacher has to be adjusted to fit the mind of each boy and each girl it teaches. And that each kid has to be taught differently. So Maggie's mother felt that the teacher has to be adjusted according to the student's mind. But in our kind of schools, you already know that. In our kind of schools, the teacher teaches children of one age the same things and they all learn the same things. So, just the same, they didn't do it that way then. If you don't like it, you don't have to read the book. So you see, Tommy is getting a little annoyed with Maggie because when he's reading, she's disturbing, she's carrying on asking questions. So each time he's giving her a rude reply. So she says, I didn't say I didn't like it, Maggie said quickly. She wanted to read about those funny schools. They weren't even half finished when Maggie's mother called. Maggie School. Maggie looked up. Not yet, Mama. Now, said Mrs. Jones. And it's probably time for Tommy too. So Maggie's mother spoke with a finality in her speech. What's the meaning of a finality? She said, now, right now you should come to your room. So Maggie got up and she said to Tommy, can I read the book sometime more with you after school? Maybe, he said nonchalantly. You see, the meaning of nonchalantly is given at the side of the page. It means not showing too much of interest. He walked away whistling, the dusty old book tucked beneath his arm. Maggie went into the school room. It was right next to her bedroom. So a question could be asked to you, dear students. Where was Maggie's school room? And your reply would be, it was just beside her bedroom. So, and the mechanical teacher was on and waiting for her. It was always on at the same time every day, except Saturday and Sunday. Now, if I were to ask you, what differences have you noticed between Maggie's school and Tommy's school and our school? What are the differences between their school and our school? There would be many differences we could identify. But the first similarity that we come across in most schools that we have of today, most schools of today will be having Saturday and Sunday as a holiday. And similarly, Maggie and Tommy enjoyed Saturday and Sunday as holidays. On other days, they had school. Alright, because her mother said little girls learned better if they learned at regular hours. So her mother, Maggie's mother, believed Little girls must be studying, or little boys must be studying every day at the same time, at the same hour. The screen was lit up and it said, today's arithmetic lesson is on the addition of proper fractions. Please insert yesterday's homework in the proper slot. So remember, Maggie hated school and she hated putting her homework inside the slot. And now the mechanical teacher is ordering her to do the same. And what is she going to study right now? She's going to study arithmetic and she's going to study about the addition of proper fractions. Maggie did so with a sigh. What kind of a sigh would it be? A sigh means you breathe hard. You take a deep breath. But what kind of a sigh would it be? Would it be a sigh of happiness or a sigh of sadness? I believe it would be a sigh of sadness. She is so bored. She is so sad to come and sit here in this boring room all alone and study. So she was thinking about the old schools they had when her grandfather's grandfather was a little boy. All the kids from the whole neighborhood came laughing and shouting in the schoolyard, sitting together in the school room, going home together at the end of the day. And you people would understand this better because you sit with your friends, you have lunch with your friends, and now you would also be going home with your friends by the same bus. And then even in the bus you would be chatting and laughing and going back. But here, poor Maggie sitting all alone in a room and studying alone. They learned the same things so they could help one another with the homework and talk about it. So when you have peers, when you have friends, you can discuss your homework. You can take help from your friends. But here this poor girl Maggie, she has to struggle and make it on her own. The mechanical teacher was flashing on the screen. When we add fractions, half and 1/4, it means 1/4. Maggie was thinking about how the kids must have loved it in the old days. She was thinking about the fun they had. So whom do you think actually had more fun? Or who has more fun? It's we people who have more fun. And that's what she means by the word they. Who's they? It means people like us. Students like you and teachers like us. When we communicate with each other, we see each other, we talk to each other, discuss problems together. That's when we have more fun. But this poor girl Maggie, she seems to be highly bored and highly frustrated with the kind of school that she is now having to use as her mode of education. So dear students, I hope that this lesson has become clear to all of you. I will be discussing the question and answers of the lesson in my next session with you, in my next class. So till then, take care, stay happy, stay blessed.